Hello, friends. This is the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. Cam K, and I'm back with Graydon Bunn this week. So happy to have him back. And this week,
thanks, man.
We've got a really, really cool guest, Caitlin Patrick from the NASCAR Pinty series, and a brand new podcast, which he'll talk about on the show, is here to chat with us. Of course, Graydon and I, we are all about Pinty's representing. So we're pumped for this one. So keep it tuned right here for our guest, Caitlin Patrick. This episode of the Stickers and Scuffs podcast has been presented by the Helloa Financial Group. Paul Helloa and his team can help you out with your insurance and investment needs. Or if you are a company that is looking for a benefits package, Paul Helloa can help you out. Check out all of their services that they provide at helloafinancial.com. Welcome to the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. Cam K, Graydon Bunn back with me. It's been weird not having Graydon on the show, and we're so lucky to have Caitlin Patrick from the NASCAR Pinty series, and we'll get to a podcast currently that has just made its debut on the airwaves, if that's even the word to use. But Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us. You are one of the people that we absolutely love seeing in the garage area, in the NASCAR Pinty series garage area. Always got a smile on your face or running around. How you doing? I know you just got back from Daytona, as we can see by your background. Are you fully rested?
Fully rested, yes. Mostly fully recovered. Am I happy to be back in nice, icy, cold Canada? God, no. But thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I love listening to your guys' podcast. It's always a blast. And yeah, let's get it started.
Yeah, well, we are. This is so fun because we've been waiting to do a Pinty's podcast episode to start the season, and it just so happens that news has just been breaking the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of big hitters that have already been announced to run in this series. JP Bergeron is going to come racing with us full-time for Dave Jacobs Racing. Brandon Watson is going to come full-time racing. And Rafael Lessard is going to run on the ovals as well with Ray Cordemosh. That is 3 heavy hitters, and it's March. Is there more? Is there more to come?
Oh, you're asking me like I actually know any of this. I normally either don't find out until it's already been posted to social media, or if the teams let me know ahead of time. So,
well,
I have no hearings.
What are we feeling though about these names coming in?
Oh, I'm very excited to see Brandon in it. He's going to kill it. Him and Trayton are definitely going to go head to head next year. It's going to be absolutely insane. They're going to be both fighting it out. It's going to be basically Delaware every oval race.
I would love that.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it whatsoever. No. But I'm very excited to see Brandon on it. I previously didn't know that much about JP Bergeron, but I'm also excited to see it. So it's going to be cool because we have I feel beginning of 2021, Trayton was really the only rookie we had in it at the beginning. And then after at GP3R, Sam Fellows joined, and due to kind of how the points stack up and all that, Trayton would have had to have so many bad days that season for Sam to take over. And then we also so it's going to be nice to have 2 rookies right out the gate gunning for that Jostens Rookie of the Year. It's going to be so cool. And who knows, we're going to get more. We might get more. So, and then obviously, I'm so happy to see Raph back in. He's such a big time name in Canadian motorsports. I feel like he's very reminiscent of when Tagliani was at the height in IndyCar, where it's you just know this Canadian, he's a household Canadian name. Raph is very quickly escalating up to that level of eliteness. So super glad to see he's going to be back and in an EHR car. So they're going to dominate. So it's going to be a sick season
already. Great, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. That with these announcements that are trickling out, the 2022 season's starting to come into focus a little bit at a time. And just speaking to that, from the rumors we've heard, we're talking car counts that could be healthier than we've seen, shall we say, in recent years, and maybe even reminiscent of a very early NASCAR presence, late cast car, dare I say. Just, we don't have to get specific, but the anticipation that I think that we feel it's coming into focus. So how does that feel from the insider perspective, if you will?
Busy.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
It's like with every driver that gets added, it's like, oh, that's another storyline to keep in mind each week. That's another
that's it. It's
ramp
tons
up
of storylines coming with every driver that's coming too.
Yeah. So it's like every driver that gets added, because like you always have your like solidified like entry list that we've had like the last 5 years, like Kevin Lacroix, DJ Kennington, LP, and adding and seeing so much more like fresh blood come in, like seeing Cole Powell come back, seeing Alex Gannett come back.
Yeah,
that was huge. So it's like, and full time with a new team. So it's like, I feel also having now like full schedule across like 5 months and not condensed into these 2 months. I have to keep reminding myself I have 5 months worth of storylines to go after, and it's not going to be like 8 weeks in a row again. So I'm excited for that, but it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited.
Well,
and
I'm
sorry,
curious.
Go ahead, Cam.
I'm very curious, Caitlin, because obviously this last year was our first year kind of at the track, and we only experienced double headers. And I've got to ask how much time you really have to get stuff prepared in a double header, because it just seems everything was so much more condensed. Is it going to be a little bit easier for you guys this year, and you especially with all the social media stuff, now that you're going to have only one race that you have to deal with? Oh
yeah, it's definitely going to be more traditional, which is like more like settled and more, like I can just get up in the morning, head to the track, help out with credentials if I need to, settle into the hauler or the media center, depending on the track, like do my morning shot, like my morning shots, my morning like social media posts. Hey, if you're at GP3R, that beer fridge opens in the media center at like 11 a.m. So it's like just shotgun a beer.
Yeah, well, there you go, right?
But no, like I get my morning social media posts going. Any drivers I need to go interview, I go and do that. I kind of like walk around the garages. During the double headers, it was like everything was like within, I want to say like an hour and a half of each other, maybe a little bit more time in between qualifying and the actual race. Just because all the cars have to go through tech again. And we usually give a buffer so like people can eat. And then we do then we have to roll the cars out and driver intros and if it doesn't rain, but driver intros and all that fun stuff. The challenge for me, all that was all fine and dandy. The challenge for me was trying to get everything uploaded onto Racing Reference and to the website in like a 45-minute window after the race, because I'm not just running from a corner and into the hauler. I'm running from a corner that I've just caught the checkered flag at to the start finish line, to victory lane. Not only was I filming it, I was also running it for the most part this year. So doing that, and then also directing other media to be like, oh yes, okay, Raf won this race, okay, yeah, I'm done with him, TSN's done with him, yeah, you can go on to the other media, or like, yes, you can go talk to him, and oh Andrew came in second, okay, yeah, I got mine, yeah, okay, you can go, anyone else want third place? No, bye. So it's like, and then running back to the hauler and trying to upload stuff on, in some cases, really slow internet. Like there's some tracks, like I remember Ducasa was horrible for it, where if you were infield, I had no service. Some people did, some people didn't. And Delaware was just as bad, where I was like standing in turns 3 and 4, championship finale, trying to post. And it was just, you're just constantly go at those doubleheader events. And it'll be a nice change of pace when we go to Saskatoon to be like, oh, right. Yeah. Haven't done this in a little bit. Cool. But I'm very excited to just kind of slow it down a bit. And when I mean slow it down, I mean still a fast pace because it's racing and it's never slow, but just not that fast.
Yeah. In the relative sense.
Yeah. We've got to confirm, who gets more steps in a race weekend? This is a great question. I think, is it you or Joel Robinson? Cause you guys both seem to be everywhere at the track.
Yeah. You're never sitting still either.
Never sitting still.
So here's the thing. Joel usually at the ovals, I remember at Jukasa, he usually would park infield. Delaware, I think he also parked infield. So for me, I feel like it depends on the track. I mean, Daytona, I think I did on average maybe like 19,000 steps. My most was 25,000. That was on Xfinity race day. My least.
I feel like we should make this interesting.
Let's see who's gonna come on with the
have a step off.
The step off. Yeah.
I'll challenge Joel to that. We'll see.
Nice.
Oh, here we go. We go.
Bike racks after school, Robinson.
I got my Fitbit. I can track this. I'm tracking this every second of every day.
Oh man, this could be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
We just calculate it each weekend. And again, some tracks are different than others. There's the ovals where I might only do like 12,000, 14,000 in a weekend or like in a day. And then like you go to like Toronto, GP3R, CTMP isn't as bad because we actually usually drive around because it is so like laid out and far. It's like there's no way I'm walking from start finish line to turn 5 in the amount of racing we have. I'm going to miss everything. Yeah. So we drive around at that track, but I still probably get over the 2 days. I probably do get maybe 20,000 steps.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, you're still pounding pavement there, literally all over the place in the paddock area.
Oh yeah. And that walk for me at CTMP, the walk from the media center at the top of the hill down to the paddock. And it's even worse when trucks are there because it's like another paddock down where like IMSA usually is. So it's just like super far walk.
Well, we head into 2022 and you know, Graydon, it's funny because he always brings up this point and it feels so true after last year because he said that, 2019, we had so much momentum in the series, Ranger coming off winning his championship, his third championship. And then all of a sudden this ugly thing comes up and destroys 2020 for us. And then last year, I mean, it was our first year being involved kind of fully in the racing scene. And I think both of us have been desperate for racing to come back since Delaware. But that last event felt like a crown jewel event. And we know, unfortunately, that Jukasa is kind of no longer on the sked. But did it not feel like that last? I mean, I'm curious what you guys felt with with all the fun that happened at Delaware Speedway and the renovations, that maybe it will take that kind of season finale perch that was at Jukasa's feet for so many years.
Canada's Coliseum.
And even Kawartha's before that as well. So I can definitely see Delaware. And they did such a good job with like hospitality and VIP and like suites. And I mean, I'd never been to Delaware before this year. So
me neither.
Yeah. So it was like, I was very pleasantly surprised by the like how racy that track was. So it was
my mind. Blew my mind. And I was not expecting it, Caitlin, at all.
And it felt like Jukasa, where it's like nothing's ever going to replace Jukasa. No. Like Jukasa was beautiful, and I hate saying was, but Jukasa always kind of holds a special place in my heart because when I worked for Can Race, we went and did a special on it Canada Day weekend before it was even on the schedule in 2017. And then I think a month before the finale that year, Kawartha was out, Jukasa was in, and it was just this, and it was my first oval race too, I believe, that year because I only did the road courses. So it was just whole different like vibe of racing. And it was like, and I remember there was like a fight on the start finish line between, I think, Lapsevich and Thiege and like their two camps. Yeah. And I was right in the middle of it. And I'm like, oh man, this is sick.
I mean, that's what I love to hear. I love to hear that you've just got that like that excitement for racing. So where did your love of motorsports come from, Caitlin?
So my stepdad was the one that actually like instilled a lot of it in me. So I kind of started back. First race I actually ever remember watching was Jimmy Johnson's 6th championship in 2013. First one I ever watched.
Wow.
And then and I was in grade 12 at that point. Fast forward a little bit to that next June. So June 2014, I'm just graduating high school and I go to Pocono for the first time for my stepdad's birthday. And I just fell in love with it. Fell in love with the atmosphere, the fans. And I was like, this is sick. Hung my hat on Jimmy right away. I was like, yeah, this guy's got 6 championships. He must be good. Just hung my hat on it right away. Started falling in love with it that fall. So September 2014, I went to school for journalism. Started doing that. Wasn't like crazy about it. Like couldn't really find my niche. Couldn't find my beat. Considered dropping out and going into events. And then went to Michigan that summer. So summer 2015, I believe, and was like on pit road. And I describe it because I remember so vividly in my mind that it was like the core memory moment of just, this is what I want to do. I want to be on pit road and feel this like excitement and adrenaline each weekend. And that's when I kind of was like, oh, maybe I'll go into like sports broadcasting. And I was going into like my final year and a half of it when I was like trying to make the transition from like breaking news to sports. And I knew nothing about sports prior. So it's like, I knew like hockey and that was about it. So it was kind of a struggle trying to find my footing, but I graduated school. 2017 went to Pocono and saw Ryan Blaney got his first win. And I was like, this is awesome.
That's a good race to go see.
It was a good race. And it was also Bubba Wallace's first start as well. So it was like a very historic weekend for the young guns and like two like great cup teams as well. And then that summer, so just as I was graduating, so like end of like, I want to say like spring 2017, Bryce Turner reached out to me on Twitter and was like, hey, I have this YouTube show. We go to like all the different like NASCAR Canada races. And I knew like a little bit about the series ahead of time. I wasn't really following it. I had interviewed Caden and Gary Clute for a couple of like my school projects and for a couple of like radio spots and stuff and interviews. And I was like, sure. He's like, oh, like we can foot the bill. Like, I don't really have money to pay you, but like come to the races and like get your foot in the door with racing. And I was like, cool.
Yeah.
That's also where I met Stephen Ellis because he also started that year. And first event we ever went to, all three of us, was to Jukasa to film that special. And then my first race was Honda Indy 2017, which like, what an intense race to be like your first race with media credentials. You guys got let in like easy. Easy. Yeah. Honda Indy is like scary because you got like, and at that point, like I knew IndyCar a little bit. So I was like, oh, this is Joseph Newgarden. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's James Hinchcliffe. So it was just like all these big names. And I was like, holy crap. I'm just like in the media center and they're just there. So it was a huge like shift in like kind of racing culture for me because I was going from like this fan perspective to this very in-depth, serious media perspective. So I did that for this season. My first season, I did Toronto GP3R, CTMP fall race, and then Jukasa. And then that next spring, so April 2019, I moved home because I had decided I was going to go back to school for sports business management. And I decided if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go home, save some money so I can travel to more races. Right. And I think in 2018, I did every race except Riverside, the Western Swing, and Chaudier, I believe. Those were the only races I didn't do. I even like made it down to New Hampshire and everything. So cool. And with that, I was kind of like trying to like push my foot in the door a little bit more, where I was like handing out my resumes to people. I remember like I had a moment with Sherry in New Hampshire where she was like Sherry and Alex Tagliani, where they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, why not come? Like, and it was like, I could feel people starting to notice like, oh, this person's putting in like a lot of effort into like showing up to these races and like putting their foot in the door. So I sent my resume around a bunch of like different teams and all that. And I had been talking with a couple of teams about doing like social media and stuff for them. And I was still in school at the time. And Motorama is actually when it was like, so Motorama 2019 was when it was like here, we're going to like introduce you to people. Cause I remember I was standing in line waiting for my media credentials, and Anthony Spiteri was standing in front of me and was like, I had a meeting with Pinty's yesterday and we talked about you. And I'm like, in a good way. And it turns out they were looking for somebody like NASCAR and NASCAR touring was looking for somebody to take over the community or the social media side of it and help with communications and like help Alex at the tracks. So I talked to a couple people there, and then a week later I got a call from the current president of, I think, touring at the time. I can't remember specifically who it was. And they're like, cool, you're going to get a call from Josh Hamilton by the end of the day, or an email from him by the end of the day. Heard from him. Now he's my current boss, did like an interview with him. And then like, that was, the rest is history. So, wow. Yeah.
And I've got to ask, I mean, this is something I think they tout a lot about NASCAR being finally getting to the point where they're starting to welcome everybody. But we kind of have a leg up on that. I mean, we have had Sherry in charge of the Pinty series, and she's got a great team of people. And, I got to say that it's got to be really cool to see a woman in charge of a race series, and you were getting to work alongside with her.
I don't know how many people realize how like diverse NASCAR is behind the scenes, not even in our series, but to work with Sherry, it's like, she has to take so much crap from so many people, and she just like doesn't care. So it's like amazing to like see as like a young woman getting into the sport. It was like, and it's daunting too, like trying to get into this male dominated sport by yourself. It's like so hard to navigate sometimes. And it's like, to see her and know like she had my back even before I worked for NASCAR was really cool. And like to see her having my back now, even more now. It's like, I like to think like her and I have like built a really great like professional relationship through NASCAR. So it's like getting to work with her each week is just like so great. And then like the other people in the series you don't hear about, like our series coordinator, Stephanie, she's amazing. She also puts up with so much shit. And it's, sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Of course.
Okay, cool. I'm over here saying crap, being like, Graydon has sons. Like, he has kids.
You should hear the mouth on him. You should hear the mouth on him.
But I pointed this out to my friends that I went to Daytona with, where you look in the paddock and you look in the garages and you look in the media center, and it's so diverse, like I love that 50-50 men, women, like so many people of color, and it's so many different backgrounds and like nationalities too, where it's like, and it's so like, so many people that come to me and are like, NASCAR is a redneck sport. And it's like, on the outside, that's what it used to be. But you look behind the scenes, and almost, I know so many female media people. I know so many female like team coordinators. I know so many female like team like marketers, and like it's so diverse now. And it's like, I'm sorry, like women run NASCAR basically. It's like what you see on the track is not reminiscent of like what the fan base is even, and like what the sport is made of.
Yeah, I think it's, and we've talked about this. I mean, we had Ryan Vargas on when he first came on, and I asked him about the LGBTQ representation in motorsports, and I loved it because he shut any hate down. He just said racing's for everybody. It's for everybody, and it's always been that way. And I that leads us into kind of your project, because your logo shows that everybody is included. And as soon as I saw it, it was like, I think Gray and I were both kind of like, this is what We want to see checkered flags, race flags mixed together with flags of importance across Canada and the world. And you guys chose to have that as your logo for your new project. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm so sorry. Brandon. But that's exactly
racing it out, brought it with the whole flag spectrum there. It's beautiful.
And that's exactly why we did it. We were like, when I first pitched it to Todd, we were like, I'm like, I want to do a podcast that talks about all the things that like might be taboo to talk about in racing, especially in NASCAR. I find like IndyCar and F1 don't typically have the same issues NASCAR does. It doesn't have the history NASCAR does.
Yep.
Like F1, each sport has its own unique like problems.
Mm-hmm.
But NASCAR specifically, it was like, I want to have a podcast where we maybe talk about some taboo things and we bring on people that are representative of people you don't get to see in the sport very often. So LGBTQ drivers and drivers of color and women drivers that there's so many other drivers in racing other than like Haley Deegan and Danica Patrick. Yes. So it's getting to showcase them and help them and getting to open the door for so many more people to know what NASCAR is. And that's why we wanted to do the logo the way we did, was because it's just to have them side by side. It's like, this is a safe space.
Yes.
You're not going to be judged.
Yes.
You're not going to be criticized. You can come exactly as you are. You don't have to hide.
Yeah.
So
that got me misty-eyed, Caitlin. That was beautiful. Really, really good stuff.
Well, it's like even hard for me as like, it's daunting. Like I said, it's like daunting to be a woman in this sport because it's like, there's so many like people judging you 24/7 of like, it's like, I know, like I've gotten the question before. It's like, you've worked in this sport. You've been in racing for like less than like 7 years. Like, how did you get up to where you are so fast? And it's like, I just worked my ass off. You don't need to question it. Like, why is it a question to a woman if their work and where they got to isn't reflective of like what they actually did? Like, why is it even a question? Because it's not to a man. Yep. So it's just like, there's so much more to like the podcast that Todd and I like really want to get into. And I'm so excited to see where it is in like a year from now. But it's like our whole point. I remember when I reached out to you, Cam, and like gave you a heads up about it, it was like, we need all the perspectives in the podcasting sphere, where it's like, I love that you guys come on and you ask about like the on-track action, and you ask about like the backgrounds, and you ask about, like you're like the fan perspective. And I love that. Because you need that fan perspective in it. Otherwise, it's like, how am I supposed to learn how to do my job better? Because it's like, I need that fan perspective. I need to know what the fans like. I need to know what the fans are seeing. For us, it was like, we want to talk about nothing on track. We don't care about how you started in racing and like you doing go-karts at 2 years old and yada, yada, yada. We want to know about the struggles you've had in racing. We want to know about, your hardest moments in racing. We want to know about what changed for you and like how it's like progressed, and like much deeper, like taboo conversation.
More personal than anything. And especially, I think in the racing world, I think people, they become very guarded about being open. And, there's what I've found is that there's so many people within the racing. I've actually found, I think more in the Canadian side of racing, that there's a lot of Canadian racers that are very open about their struggles, and it needs to be for everybody. Like you said, everybody needs to feel comfortable to be able to discuss that. Hey, sometimes life sucks, and that's why I'm going to just tie it into the Bubba Wallace documentary.
I was about to mention it as well.
Like people will crap on that all the time, but as somebody who lives with mental health struggles, hearing a NASCAR driver talk about the struggles that he has to go on with himself And he is a top NASCAR driver. No matter what people say, he's in the top division. He's got sponsorship. He's got all that pressure. And him openly talking about that is what needs to happen. That conversation has to be open. You guys now have an avenue that you are going to show that for everybody. And I think you and Todd together, it's just perfect. It is a great combination. It's, how can people go out and find you guys on social media?
We're on everything. I actually finally just got us on Apple Podcasts. So we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google. I don't know if I mentioned YouTube. And then we're also on like all the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just racing it out. We only have one episode right now. We're bi-weekly. I guess that's something I didn't really make clear when we announced it was it's a bi-weekly podcast. Todd and I have very busy lives, and we were like, we definitely didn't want to bite off more than we can chew, and we definitely want to build it, and we don't want to take away. So we're like, let's start this off bi-weekly. So we should have another podcast coming out this week. But yeah, that's where you can find us there. But yeah, I was going to bring up the Bubba Wallace documentary because I was on the plane ride home from Daytona watching it crying because I don't know how I missed the fact that Bubba has been like diagnosed with depression and like battling that for years now. I don't know how I missed that because that was so many. I feel like, and to go way, way back, I feel like Dale Jr. was the first person to like really come out and the first big name driver to come out and be like, I'm not okay. And it's okay that I'm not okay. And that's the most important part of it is like, hey, I have this injury or this disability or this mental health issue, and it's okay that I have it. And I'm still equal to everybody else here. So
trailblazers, really.
Mm-hmm. So it's like to see, and Bubba takes on so much more than I think any other driver might, because he has the weight of an entire race on him. And not many people ever have to do that ever. No. It's like, and not
on
just
top of the pressure he's already putting on just himself. I mean,
the pressure to perform, the pressure to give to sponsors.
On top of the tons of bigotry and hate that still exists across the world as well. And it was, I've recommended it to a lot of people that aren't even fans of racing, because I don't think it transcends racing. I think it's for every person across the world to be interested in, because it tells a very sad truth. And that is, this still occurs here. It occurs in America. It occurs all over the world. And it's awful that it does. But if they're going to create more documentaries, NASCAR based, like they did for this, sign me up, because holy moly.
It was so well done too.
So well done. And I will be honest, I told Graydon this, it made me do something that I never thought was possible. It made me like Denny Hamlin.
I'm right there with you, Cam. Hamlin has never been my favorite driver. Going to Daytona, I'm like, please not Denny Hamlin. Please not Denny
that's
Hamlin.
what I did.
I just, oh gosh. And to see Bubba come so close to it as well.
Yeah.
Like, all of my three friends were collectively, like, we were at the start finish line on pit road waiting and like watching and like just hoping it was going to be Bubba. Because like, what a storyline. It was just like, and it was Black History Month as well. So it was like, it was just, would have just been amazing. And it's like, and now having watched the documentary as well, it's like, you understand the emotion and the reaction he had after not winning it. And it's like he has a whole career ahead of him. He is not going anywhere anytime soon, as much as some people want him to. I'm sorry. He is trailblazing for so many more drivers, and not just like African-American drivers of any ethnicity, any diversity coming into the sport and being like, I can do it too. So it's like, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. People like him are not going anywhere anytime soon in this sport. And everyone else that doesn't want to accept it just needs to accept it. So
yeah, I think Graydon, I think we kind of have said it, I after watching it, even though I was a fan of his before, I think I'm even more of a fan of him now than I ever was. And, we're fans of you and your podcast with Todd. And we're very, very honored that you came on and chatted with us. And we want to obviously thank you, Caitlin, for all you did for us last year and helping us navigate what was a very big whirlwind to start off. We were, I'm not going to lie, Graydon, we were lost, right? Like when we started, we had no idea what the hell we were doing.
But I was there once too. So It's like, and it wasn't that long ago. It was 5 seasons ago. Like 2021 was my 5th season in this series. And it was not that long ago. And I'm still learning things about like how, especially in like the higher levels of like how like cut pit road works and how credentials works there. And I'm constantly learning more. And that's the beauty of it. It's like, it's ever evolving and ever changing. So it was when giving you guys the opportunity to come and like grow your podcast and like become media is just, it in a way felt like I was giving back because it was like, I could very clearly see 2017-year-old Caitlin in you guys, where it was like
a lot older guys, but
yeah, I'm 40 years old.
Wait, Cam, you and I are the same age though, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
Well,
you've got like 5 years on me. I'm sorry.
So 2 old farts now.
But
hey, it'll be there. I'll be there soon enough. Don't you worry. My time will come.
But what we're talking about here, though, how we all kind of have our place in this. In my time as what I would call the super fan or whatever, I mean, we got to be noticed with the boys, and in that we were learning when we didn't even really know it, when we were setting ourselves up for this podcasting thing, because you learn garage etiquette, like when you have the open paddock at CTMP, like you can tell there's times where you just leave everybody the hell alone and don't talk to them. But I mean, then you also know you start making friends with like the Linda Joneses of the world, and but point is that
we love our Gloria.
Oh, I love Gloria.
And Jessica and all the people that eventually we start making eye contact. They're like, hey, I've seen you before. And it's like what you've said, Caitlin. And with this podcast landscape that is really cool to see popping up in Canada, you have the Driver in Deep boys with Nagy being a former racer, and he's worn just about every hat there is in Canadian stock car racing.
Yeah.
And then we have, like you said, we're the nerds that just want to ask all the questions that, as you said, when the drivers are and the professionals like you are in your office, you don't necessarily have the time to answer them, but we want to ask them anyway. So this became our way to give back, if you will, for, as I said, like Scott and 22 Racing and Jason Hathaway and Jamie at EHR and DJ and LP, just the kindness they've showed us over the years as fans. This is kind of our way to, I don't know, help in any way we can. And now you're coming along with the Racing It Out podcast with Todd. I mean, it's cool to actually feel like we're creating a motorsports podcast landscape in Canada that almost otherwise wasn't really there to speak of. And Clinton and Adam with the whole G-Force thing. I mean, there's so many perspectives, and it's all here for fans to take in and get into.
Well, it was kind of cool for me when I was in Daytona. I got to catch up with a lot of friends that I had met in like 2019, 2020. And most of the time, like one of the first things they said to me was like, oh, like one of my one friend, Davey Siegel, who also has a podcast.
Yes.
And he's written for Pinty's before. He was like, welcome to the podcast sphere. So it's like we are a part of that little Canadian bubble of racing podcasts, but it's like we're also a part of this like much bigger, just like motorsports, like podcast family, because there are more racing and like NASCAR podcasts out there, but they're not many. And each one is so unique. So it's like every single one brings a different perspective and a different element to the table. So it's like whether you're doing your podcast down in the States and bringing on a Canadian driver, or you're my podcast bringing on a driver from the LGBTQ community, or you guys bringing on Ryan Vargas to talk about his experiences. It's like every single one is just so unique. It blows my mind every time we get new ones coming on, because it's like the fan retention from each podcast is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's super fun to be a part of.
Yeah. It feels like NASCAR itself is its own community, but the podcast part of it is like, I'm very quickly realizing is like its own other part of like a little community, which is really great.
It really is. And, you know, we're so glad to have friends, podcast friends. So we've got, you know, you and Todd. Obviously, we're always going to be, we're friends with anybody in racing, because that's what we are. We're fans first, and then we do the podcast stuff on the side, you know. So Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us. We'll definitely, I mean, this won't be the first interaction we'll have. We'll be seeing each other lots this summer at the races, and we'll
see you as you're running past.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I'll be running. I'll be like, that's exactly what it'll look like for the first little bit.
My dad actually had he said he could count all the times he saw you running past on every event. So
I think he got a video of Matt and I running at Flamborough, and I was like, oh God.
Yeah. He's like, you need to put some music to it and post it up. I'm like, no, I don't think we're going to do that, but it is something. So definitely, guys, if you're going to see the NASCAR Pinty series, definitely go out and do it, and definitely follow the social media for NASCAR Pinty series and Racing It Out with our friend Caitlin Patrick. Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you at the racetrack.
Thank you for having me, guys.